Jim, what's up, bro?
Nate, how's it going,
Thanks
man?
for being here, man.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we're gonna have some fun.
Yes, we are.
Are you a Star Wars fan?
I am. Yeah, I go way back. I used to watch them when I was like 6, 7 years old.
Do you have a favorite character in Star Wars?
Oh, it's got to be Luke.
Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main guy.
The underdog.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be Luke. Would you have if you knew that Darth Vader was your dad, would you have like given him a pass, or would you just
try to kill him anyway? Like what?
Because he was so dirty.
I think I would have. Tried to kill him anyway.
Really?
Sorry,
that's
Dad.
good.
I hope my own dad's not listening.
It's good to know. I mean, no, I mean you got to be real, right? It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. I always think about that in you ever put yourself in someone's position in Star Wars, like as a benevolent person, I would think, yes, I would want to redeem my dad, but like it really takes a lot to do that. I mean, really, like it's easy to say you can do that.
Yeah, I think the canned answer is yeah, I would be like all brave and manly about it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of being a human, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we all have great positive attributes to us and made in the likeness and image of God, but then also we have some darkness to us too, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's part of the journey. You're also a Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know if you're a Harry Potter fan or whatnot, but I remember one of the Harry Potter episodes. Harry was contemplating. He's like, good, evil. I don't want to be like Voldemort, the bad guy. And his mentor told him, it's not that any one person is good or evil. It's a choice. We choose, and that choice will determine our effect on the world, our outcomes in the world. And so I think that's a very powerful way to go about life. And I know you and I somebody listens like, what are you guys talking about? You're not even, what are you talking about? But if you listen to the show, we just start off with just like off the wall stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about everything here. So there's two individuals that Oprah Winfrey was interviewing one time. And the first guy goes, hey, I turned out the way I am. I'm in jail because my dad was an alcoholic and beat me up. Second guy comes on and says, hey, I became a CEO of a company because my dad was an alcoholic and beat me up. Same
total
environment,
choice, yeah.
But different choice completely, right?
Yeah. And that's I think that's part of the to me, it's part of the excitement of life. The excitement about life is that I get to choose. There's a lot of things you can't choose in life. Like you can't choose your parents. I mean, maybe you can if you in some cases, but generally speaking, although my son would always say, I wish you guys weren't my parents when he was younger. We had a very small family and he liked big families. And so he'd be like, oh, I wish I was, your sister-in-law's kid because they got a big family. Nonetheless, there's certain things you can't choose. There's certain things you can't. And one thing you can choose, and I think to your point, is your attitude. You can choose your attitude. And so like, okay, this is what I've been given. What is my perspective on it? Am I going to be a victim or am I going to be a victor? Am I going to engage or am I going to burn out? Am I going to live in misery or am I going to live in mastery? Those are all choices.
That's
and
right.
those choices have an impact on our effort, where it's placed. And our effort has an impact on our performance. Mm-hmm. And then our performance has an impact on our outcome, our result. And our result has an impact on our reward. And our reward has an impact on our satisfaction.
That's right.
So all of it goes like hand in hand, right? But what does it start with? It starts with your choice.
That's right. And that choice develops the character too, right?
Yes.
I was thinking about this the other day. So Simon Sinek has that Start With Why. And one of the very first, that came out in like 2009. And so I started out as a business owner in 2008, started studying investing in 2006. I thought, oh, well, if I start with why, everything will work out. And, I had this big why. Oh, well, I want to improve the world and make a lot of money while I do it. And I love flipping houses because I can take a property and make a home for a family. And yeah, that was a big why, but I wasn't but then people wouldn't follow me as a leader, and people, saw a different, maybe a lack of congruency within that message, because they saw a guy trying to do a bunch of deals and make a lot of money in my 20s, and so I think one of the things that's interesting, we hear whether it's Simon Sinek or whomever, right? You talk a lot about leadership. What a great podcast and following you have, by the way.
Thank you, brother.
And, but part of it also starts with that, are you who you say you are? Are you connected and
authenticity,
and have that authenticity, right? And Simon, I mean, he only talked for 10 minutes there, but he kind of left that part out. You can have that perfect why that could on the surface inspires everybody, but then if there's no substance to you, no substance or connection to your soul, and you aren't the person that can be that leader, and people aren't going to follow.
Yeah. It's interesting you brought that up, because the authenticity piece, it flows through all of our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It flows through our business experiences. It flows through our family experiences. It flows through our community experiences, everything. And I've found that people have more respect for you when you're authentic, even if you differ, rather than being inauthentic to simply find common ground. And you did something some time ago, and I don't want to share it without your permission, but there was this sort of push for you to have this persona. Do you remember that?
We're going there.
Do you remember that?
We might need some earmuffs from Joe on this. That's
and what was the name that they were going to go for? Was it Big Jim?
Big Jim and a cowboy hat.
Big Jim and a cowboy hat.
We're going there.
Big
All
Jim
right,
and a cowboy
let's do
hat.
it, dude.
All right, let's do it. All right. Okay. Hey.
I mean, we only have 1 million listeners on your podcast now, by the way.
Well, what I found remarkable, and hey, look, in business, if you're listening and you're in business, we all think about, hey, what are ways that we can have greater impact and have greater messaging and have greater memory. Mm-hmm. And so we think about things, we try different things. Anyway, so a very small background in and we'll talk more about your business later, but there was this idea proposed in your company that, hey, Jim, if you wore a big cowboy hat, you may be more memorable, right? This sort of persona. What I thought was, and I was even on board, I was like, hey, man, that's super cool. Yeah. But what I didn't think about at the time was that wasn't really you.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually stood your ground.
Yeah.
And you said, it's inauthentic. It's not me. And I'm not going to go there. I thought, you know what? I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a good marketing idea in a sense, because in St. Louis, Missouri, not many guys wear cowboy hats. So they wanted to put me up on billboards, in the cowboy hat and everything. And you better believe everybody would be talking about that, right? And, but I would have felt like a phony or somebody that I wasn't. But the fascinating thing about it is, and it was Joe's idea. This was a big disagreement Joe and I had for a month, right?
And if you listen to the show, Joe has been on the show many times.
Yeah, that's right. And so the fascinating thing about it was that there was a deeper messaging. And this surprisingly ties into, it's like we planned this out, even though we're just talking.
Right? We're just spitballing.
So, I mentioned Simon Sinek and hey, being that leader, and what the message that Joe was trying, I think he just intuitively wanted me to hear was hey, Jim, you're kind of there's a lot to be proud of. There's a lot of accomplishments. You started this business in your parents' unfinished basement. You're from a middle-class family. You had a zero net worth when you started, and now we have 30 plus people and everything's happening like that. But you're still the kid that's in his parents' unfinished basement. There's still a lot of doubt. There's still a lot of anxiety. There's still a lot of questioning. And what he wanted, what he was hoping to do with the cowboy hat, is to put on that, like, kind of like that bigger version of myself, and like lead with who he sees me to be, not who I see myself to be. And so the power behind that whole journey was being able to self-reflect and be like, wow, like, here we have this big vision, and we're calling people to a great cause, like helping deserving families with home ownership, helping them with the American dream. And yet I'm showing up as a 22-year-old scared kid that hasn't accomplished anything, even though we've done a lot of great stuff. And, it's time to put the big boy pants on a little bit. And so, as I thought about it, it was like the cowboy hat itself wasn't going to do that for me. It was, I had to do that for me. You know what I mean? So it was.
That's deep, bro.
Yeah. And it ended up being, like this big fight, like we had the business partners split. And, the cool thing about it though, was I heard the message, and I was able to, adapt and adjust a little bit. But I could do it on my own terms as a leader. I didn't have to, just now, it would have been such a tragedy for me to just not take that feedback and kind of gone on the way I was doing things. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's commendable, especially in a business environment when you're pressured, if you will, and you may see some benefit to making that shift. I'm curious in this journey, if you will, in this of authenticity, how mentorship plays a part in you living your authentic self. And I've heard you tell a story of just the early days, the impressionable days of Jim, and all of us, as someone listening is remembering a mentor or someone who perhaps took them in or taught them some deep nuggets of wisdom early on. For me, it was I've had many mentors, but specifically my cousin, who was a little older than me, and took me into his business and taught me a little bit about life. Not necessarily that I wanted to live like him, but he taught me some things that I was naive to, and they stay with me forever. And I think you've had that same kind of experience early on that really helped you form what was truly authentic and central to who you are as an individual. I'd love for you to share a little about that.
Yeah, so you're likely talking about the an internship I had from a self-made billionaire. Is that where you're getting at? And so fresh out of college, and this was my prime drinking age. After
my prime
drinking age, I could throw a few back, right? And
were you a prime drinker?
Yeah,
So this is like 22, 23?
So yeah, I'm 21, 20. Yeah, it's probably just turned 22. And it was in 2006 when the market was tanking. So I was just looking for any old job I could get.
Yeah.
Friend of a friend had this gig.
What was your favorite drink?
My favorite drink?
Back then.
I would do Natural Light.
Natty Light.
Yeah, I was a Natty Light guy. Yeah, oh yeah. I've always been cheap, Nate. What can I say?
That was your drink.
That was my drink.
How much would you drink?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's.
Would you like a 6-pack, 12-pack?
12-pack kind of guy plus.
12-pack plus.
Oh yeah.
You'd pound down a 12-pack of Natty Light.
Yeah, I mean, I was
that's easy,
in good shape. I was a collegiate athlete, and we partied hard and worked. Got all the work in and stuff. And
so back then, how much was a 12-pack of Natty Light? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh, it had to have been like $4 or $5, something like that.
Right? You get 12 beers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hated beer. I don't drink anymore, but when I drank it, I hated the taste of it. Some people, personally, I think it's an acquired taste, but I think most alcohol is anyway. Like even hard liquor is, when you see people who are taking that sip of whatever it is, scotch, and it almost looks like it's something like they're drinking caramel.
Yeah.
But it's not. It tastes like gasoline.
Well, yeah, some of it's like, man, they're just like stone cold poker face. There's no way they like that. Some of the stuff.
So
Yeah,
so
some
you
of that stuff put some hair on your chest on it.
and take it right off.
Yeah.
So you were a natty light drinker, and you
Yeah.
meet this billionaire, which is probably the antithesis, the opposite end of the spectrum for
Oh,
you.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're middle class family.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So you're not
great.
It's not foreign to you to. I mean, you're not like. I mean, I grew up pretty stinking poor.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. If you listen to the show at all, you know that. But I mean, honestly, what's relative though? What's stinking poor, right? Here in the U.S., we still had food. We still had a roof overhead. We still had access to medical. I mean, greatest opportunities in this nation. I'm so thankful for that. I know you are too. But there's still, you meet a billionaire.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were like, oh man, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And flying on his private jet, drinking, chugging $1,000.
He was
champagne.
not. I'm sure the private jet did not have Natty Light.
It did not. Yeah, it
That
had
was not-
Krug champagne. I remember just pouring it and just chugging it as if it was Natty Light. It's like, a decade later, I look it up. I was like, I'm pretty sure that was at least $1,000. That bottle of champagne
think about
that I
how
just
many
chugged.
Natty Lights you could have bought with $1,000.
I know. You should have just you should just wrote me a check rather than
So
feed
you're
a 22-year-old.
So wait, you're
you won't appreciate, right?
So you're interning. You're on a private jet. Most people have never been on a private jet in their entire lives, including myself.
Yeah.
Had to be so surreal. You probably were. I suspect that you thought this guy had it made.
Oh yeah.
Had a perfect life. Was super happy.
That's right.
Had it all together.
Yeah, I met his girlfriend who was just absolutely drop dead gorgeous, half his age, and this guy's wider than he is tall. So I'm thinking, man,
Can you buy me
America,
love?
this is great.
Yeah.
This is what you can
Yeah,
have
cough syrup.
happen.
I love America.
This is what it's all about. That's what I was thinking. And like the benefits of entrepreneurship, the glory behind it, right? But then there's a dark side. So because we were labeling his wine collection, we got to know him on more of a personal level. First week, I'm idolizing him. And then second week, as the onion gets peeled back, I realize, whoa, this guy is not happy. He's absolutely miserable. And, he brings us to dinner because if the help's there, his daughters will talk to him, and then as I got to know him better and better, it was like, whoa, there is a huge, huge cost to this entrepreneurship thing at the same time, and I'd venture to say, like, looking back, like he would have given all of it away to be in a more happy place, but
he wasn't.
And he's not able to do that, right?
It's important you bring that up because, especially, I'm going to say a younger listener because there's many ages of listeners and they're new in entrepreneurship. However, there's this perception that wealth and the accumulation of wealth is positively correlated with happiness in life. And, in my sector, the financial sector, I've seen from destitute to never have to work another day in your life, as you have in your sector as well, because you raise funds for real estate and whatnot. And I think it's so important to delineate and to specify that wealth is a vertical. It's a lane. And it is one measurement of success. It's a measurement of success in a very specific, narrow area. And there are many other measurements of success. There's your family life. Do your kids have a relationship with you that's healthy and fruitful? Does your spouse, if you're married, and does your family, your siblings, your parents, do you make an effort to be committed to those relationships, to create the kind of memories that you are worthy of?
Yeah.
There's another vertical of your physical health. Is that in order? Do you take time for self-care? Do you take time to make sure that your temple, your body, is being well cared for. There's your spiritual health. There's your emotional health. There's your mental health. There's all of the, and I can go on and on, but all of these different verticals. And the thing about what we see so often, and this is back to this conversation around authenticity, is whether it's on the cover of Fortune magazine or Entrepreneur, any of the magazines, or any cover story, is we automatically associate, wow, this person has wealth, dollars, they're so successful. That's what we say. We just it's successful. And I'm like, are they?
Maybe.
I mean, are they? We hear stories all the time. Elon Musk talks about it. He's like, you don't want my life. He says, you don't want my life. The richest, I think, still, maybe, or one of the richest people on the planet. And I found actually a negative correlation, not all the time, but I have found consistently a negative correlation with increased wealth and happiness. I found that people tend to get, not everyone, but people tend to get more curmudgeon-y and more dissatisfied the more money and wealth they have. It's I don't want to call it bizarre, but have you seen that as well?
Well,
it can happen.
I mean, it's the difference between renting a vacation rental and owning it, right? If you're renting it and the toilet leaks, well, okay, you just call the property manager, right? If it's your own house, well, okay, now you're frustrated. How could this be messed up? And now I got to take care of it, right? But yeah, I've seen that too. Now it's on the lower end. It's definitely, there's basic levels of financial means that help unlock a certain level of happiness. It's really hard to live when you're very poor, right?
It is.
But then there gets to a point where, you almost have too much money to manage and bigger problems because of the added wealth, right?
And this is back to the mentorship, or when you were interning for this individual, and you recognize that, okay, all right, some of it is smoke and mirrors. Yes, the private jet's cool. The inventorying of the wine collection, all right, that's really, pretty baller.
It was
right?
really cool. Yeah, no question about it.
But you made a very poignant observation that it's not wealth and happiness, and really authentic happiness is not necessarily synonymous. It's like, okay, and I think you ascribe to the idea of what do you have to give up? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's so easy to get caught up in the stuff of this world and everyone's outsides, right? What's that saying? Never judge your insides by someone else's outsides, right? And it's interesting on my journey. I'm reading this book called The Prodigal Son. Have you started it yet or not?
Not yet. I'm almost ready for it. I'm almost ready.
And there's, he talks a lot about kind of the inward journey and how we always look outside, whether it's a wonderful podcast like Call to Leadership or, a mentor. And a lot of times we look for the answers out in the world when sometimes that equation or the formula for joy and true connectedness and true peace is actually already on the inside. And so as I'm going through this book, I was like, whoa, I wrote my first journal I did was when I was 17, 18 years old. Like, man, I wonder, I should open that up. And I'm scrolling through the pages, and it was like a religious retreat called Kairos. For anyone that has opportunity to send their kids to it, it was a wonderful experience. And then big letters, one of the things I wrote down was, I'm selfish. I need to try and help other people, as an awareness. And other lines was like, hey, just let go, be in tune with God and God's will. And my big thing this year is is to just surrender into the moment and be connected on a spiritual level. And this is my truth, guys, by the way. This is no judgment. I lived far too many years with not the relationship I should have had with God. But and like to me, as a 40-year-old, I'm like, oh, this is a novel new idea that I'm gonna like transition my life. And then I opened up the book as an 18-year-old, and it had already been placed on my heart as an 18-year-old. It's like, oh man, yeah, that's oh, some new idea here, right? And I think sometimes the like as achievers, we get a lot of time caught in the, if I hit this goal, then I'll be happy. If my company grows another $5 million, then I'll have the relationships I want with my life. And some of it just doesn't act that way. If we really want to be free, in my case, in the cowboy hat, there was some anxiety there, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how successful the business grows or climbs to, or how much my net worth grows. If I don't get free on the inside, even if I'm financially free, I'm not going to be a holistically free.
Yeah.
Right. And just some of those answers, they like you already actually know them in your soul, I find.
You just have to uncover them.
Yeah. Yeah. In my case, remember them.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that's where that is.
Yeah.
You touched on something that I think bears digging a little deeper. And you talked about this hamster wheel, if you will, of achievement. And achievement being the measure of really worth. And it's ingrained in many of us that it's the prize is the reason why others should be proud of you. The accolade. And I'm not condoning or advising that everybody gets a trophy, but I've learned to retool how I express my my gratitude and how proud I am of someone, and especially even like when you're raising kids, and reframing. Even saying, I'm proud of you because you achieved this or that. Mm-hmm. Because when it's connected to that, that's the object always. And if you don't achieve, then you will feel less worthy.
That's right.
However, if we change the frame and say, I'm proud of you because of the effort that you put forth. If you gave it your all, fantastic. The outcome's the outcome. You're not always going to win the gold medal. You might not even win the silver or the bronze. So what am I going to say? Oh, you failed. You're a failure. I disown you. Or, of course, that's an extreme measure, but it happens.
Yeah.
And by changing that dynamic, you release something. You release the burden. Because it's a burden to say, I have to achieve this. When I was growing up, all I wanted to do was make my dad proud. Just want to make him proud. And we had an estranged relationship for many years because my parents were divorced. And when I was older, teens and late teens. And I wanted to be just like my dad, but I wanted my dad to be proud of me. And so I did all these things, that I achieved all these things. And I thought, well, if I just have a cool office, or if I make this much money, or if I have if I can afford this kind of a car, if I can take him here and there, then he'll be proud of me. And my father never told me he was proud of me. Interestingly, when he was in a coffin, when I was in my early 30s, all of his friends were from Chicago, came to the funeral there in Chicago, and he said, "Oh, you're Mike's son." Oh, he was so proud. He always talked about how proud of you he was, how proud of you he was. And it was never because of what I accomplished, but it was because of the attitude I had to give my best.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same story that you're talking about with the prodigal son. And so you mentioned God, and what's beautiful about that story is that the father was not giving his son the accolade because he achieved greatness. In fact, he was as tattered as you can be. I mean, he was at the bottom of the dumps. He lost everything. And he was a disgrace. But because he took the step forward in humility, and that's what mattered most.
There's unconditional love there. And what was wild about it is even the prodigal son, still flaws and all, he was in part doing it because slaves get treated better than he's being treated now. In part, it was a selfish act.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't fully altruistic, and yet the father loved anyway. And I think we're all called to that in many respects, right?
Yeah. Well, and then the other son, who was the doer, and he was the one who got the impact. He achieved. And he was upset because his brother's getting all this attention.
Yeah.
What did he say? You know, I've been doing all this for you. And I love the response. And of course, there's different versions have different ways to describe it. I love the response where the father's saying, hey, look, you know, all I have is yours. It's always been yours. In other words, you don't have to earn my love. It's always been yours. You don't have to have this done or that done or that done. Just be the best you. And even if that best you is extremely flawed, like we all are, even if it's, as you said, partly selfish, I still love you. That's not going away.
Yeah, and then the evolution of it for me is, you know, can I have that unconditional love for myself when I see all the sin, or I see all the stuff I've struggled with, all the mistakes I've made, and still love myself anyway, right? But, and then if you get, yeah, so I had the exact same thing with my family. My dad was very critical. I think that was a generation. So my dad's a baby boomer, and then his parents were from the World War I, the greatest generation kind of, or oh my gosh, Depression kids.
Yeah.
And so like I see each generation's kind of shifting a little bit in the paradigm, and there's still a little bit of a hangover from that, you know, that tough love that my dad got a little bit too. And you know, gosh, man, like if we're just, I mean, we can climb the ladder of success and then realize at the end of it, well, you know, like 10 years ago, if I was where I was at now, I mean, I would be jumping up and down, just doing cartwheels, but no, in 10 years, I'm going to be just so focused on what the next goal to hit is.
Well, it's,
you know,
yeah, exactly. Or you know, I've heard it said like this: you could be climbing that ladder of success, then when you get to the top, you realize it was leaning against the wrong building.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you missed the whole game all along the way, right?
Yeah.
And so in my journey, what's fascinating is, so I use that negative energy that I learned from my upbringing. It's like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where the ball's flying after Indiana Jones, right? And then all of a sudden, like, you get to a certain level and you realize, wait, there's no more ball anymore. Now what? You know, it's like, oh, well, you can lie to yourself about needing this negative energy, but yeah, at some point you burn out from it. And I believe and I haven't done any studies on this, but I probably read this somewhere, but I think the ultra successful achievers find a way to be 100% content and happy with where they're at, and also 100% motivated for the next level.
Yeah.
And when you get into that true purpose, that true calling, like you can go for it and stay as motivated without having to have that negative fear that drives you, or that negative anxiety.
Yeah, I've heard Jim Collins talk about it, and he talks about it, calling it level 5 leadership, and he says level 5 leadership is a combination of two different factors. One, is professional will. And you would expect that. You would expect a level 5 leader to have massive resolve, massive will. And the other side, though, he says, which may seem contradictory, is personal humility. Mm-hmm. He says, this professional will plus this personal humility creates the level 5 leader. A lot of what you're talking about, because you can live in that humility of contentment while at the same time striving for the very best. And like, I want to blaze into heaven, but I don't want to do it because of my own ego. I want to do it in the humility of knowing that, like, there's no way that I could ever achieve or reach any type of meaningful goal without others and working together, because I have only so many gifts. You have gifts, and we all work with them together. Even us working together in connecting with our businesses. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something that's important too, is, hey, do I give myself grace and love as well? Because that's important. That's part of this position, if you will, of being healthy on the inside.
Yeah.
And if you're listening and you're in that place where maybe that's something that hasn't been thought about, maybe now's the time.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you do or reflect on to keep that in focus?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's just, to me, the process is like, when I'm really right, I'm like journaling and I'm going inward for answers as well. Like you mentioned, the 5-level leadership, right? Like, or when I was listening to Simon Sinek, it's like, logically I understood all of that, but I didn't know it. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between being able to logically get it and then be like, be authentic into that as who you are. And, I would say it's taking the time to do the work, not just listening to the podcast after podcast or book after book. It's also taking the time to, hey, where am I at? Right. Am I a 5-level leader, if that's what the goal is? Okay, where am I stumbling on, and how do I up my game? But it's not going to happen. It's going to happen through coaching and mentorship. But then also, you can have the best coach in the world if you don't take that information and then self-reflect and internalize it. It's not going to do you much good either, is it?
No, it won't. And I believe that's that process of what I would consider leadership is discovery, influence, and achievement of, that's at least effective leadership. You say, well, Nate, didn't you just say that, you shouldn't be necessarily proud of someone if they don't achieve? Look, if you put forth intelligent effort and then you've created the right kind of influence in whatever it is, business, family, or life, you're going to achieve. Mm-hmm. I mean, achievement is inevitable. You say, well, what if you fail? Failing is part of the process of achievement. How many babies can walk after the first time getting up? I've never seen one. Have you?
Not one.
Not one. They fall. And what do? We don't scold them and say, oh, dumb kid. No, we would never do that.
Shouldn't have stumbled.
Yeah, you should have stumbled. What's wrong with you? Because we know it's a part of the process. It's failing forward. I believe that failure is not final. It's feedback. It's only final when you give up. Mm-hmm. So now there's a time and a place to fail correctly, because I think we should do most of our failing before we hit prime time. I think Pixar did this very well. They created, there was a lot of failing prior to the production of any of the animated movies. And so if we can do most of our failing early on, will there be failures in the process after you've gone to prime time? Of course. That's the way things go, whether in any vertical, mm-hmm. right? I feel all the time as a father and as a husband. Thank goodness I have a family who gives me massive grace, because it's new. Mm-hmm. Like, especially for those of us who have teenagers, you can read all you want, you can listen to podcasts, and you can do all that. It's good. It's important to do that. I do that quite a bit. But there's the preparation for a teenager today is different than a preparation when you and I were teenagers.
Yeah.
And so, however, the effort that we put forth authentically and knowing who we are and having the discipline and the drive to give our very best in that sphere, have the right people around us, the failure will help propel you to doing great things and having massive impact. And that's what you're doing in your business. I want to talk about that a little bit. You've got a really interesting business model, and you're in the home ownership business. And so I've been in the real estate sector since the 90s. Honestly, if I can be really candid, I always hated being a landlord. Now you, on the other hand, and here's, before I go there, in fact, it's weird because I know, a lot about real estate, right? But you ever do something you know a lot about and you're like, I don't really want to do this kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was me. However, you've taken this real estate journey model, and you've done something really interesting and unique, and with your team and your partners, in that you're providing opportunities for people in this space who would not have opportunities otherwise.
That's right.
That's important.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who perhaps doesn't have the stellar credit score, or somebody who doesn't have all of the resources. They've got some money, but maybe some things went wrong, and they just can't get a break. And you step in that gap.
Yeah, like one of our first clients has a special needs kiddo, and the kiddo got sick, got behind on medical bills, and we crossed paths with them. They had paid the medical bills off, but their credit was damaged, and they needed Lindbergh Schools is a great school district here in St. Louis, and because of the special needs, they needed Lindbergh Schools, and they didn't have 8 years for their credit to repair because that's all a grade school, right? So we said, well, hey, why don't, instead of even just renting, like the only thing you messed up is you didn't have a big enough rainy day fund. Could have been me at the wrong time in my life.
Same.
Could have been anybody, as long anyone that doesn't have wealthy parents anyway, right? And they said, well, no, why don't you be a homeowner? Let's get the kid in the school district, and you can be a homeowner now. You don't have to wait. And so it's really become a new calling for us. And
but just stop right there, man. Just saying that, some people, that's so foreign to them. This is so foreign, they think they're going to rent the rest of their lives. They don't have, and it goes back to what we would call part of, quote unquote, the American dream of home ownership. There's a certain level of joy, because it's not a house, it's a home. A home is where you make memories.
Yeah.
And when you can provide that kind of opportunity, say, hey, you might have had some extenuating circumstances that preclude your ability to go about this in a traditional way, but we're going to provide you with an alternate way that you can be a part of this American dream.
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really a newfound passion. Things have been getting a little stale for us, and we were over 12, 13 years investing into our careers.
And how many houses or units have you had over the years? You're not small turkeys.
Yeah, it's been over 3,500.
Over 3,500 properties.
Yeah.
Or doors. I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But so the name of your business is a little misleading, because
it's only 3 doors.
It's only 3 doors. That's right. 3,500
3 doors plus
yeah, times 10x,
97,
100x. Yeah, to the multiple power, right?
That's
Geek it out of that. So lease purchase model. We won't go into all the details because it can kind of get. But the point,
Yeah, well, yeah. So here's what I've discovered on my investing journey. So we've talked a little bit about my personal journey, but on the investing side, I was like, okay, well, I can get into real estate. My why is because I can improve a home, make a home for a family, and make a lot of money while I do it. That's what I started out, and I became out of integrity with that vision because as we were flipping homes, it became we're just going to we're going to have the biggest flipping company here in St. Louis. We're going to do more deals and make more money than anybody. And as that happened, yeah, we got up to over 250 properties we owned at the same time that we were flipping. We did all sorts of amazing stuff, but there wasn't a congruency there because I had lost my way. I had, lost the benefits and the influence that I could be doing for the community. It became about making money. And a few years ago, it was starting to burn out and ask myself questions like, hey, is this all there is? What's missing here? And that's when we stumbled upon this model and how we can really help people. And guys, if you think about it, so on the investing side where I'm at is I believe, we want to invest and we want to make money, but also one of the most important things we can do with our investments is positive impact. If you think about it, Christopher Columbus, he had a financial backer. It wasn't the King of France, it was the King of Spain, right? And now you see, senor. And there's parts of the world now that speak Spanish, they don't speak French. And I guess I get that that's a very dramatic way to view what one investment can do, but it's the truth.
Sure, yeah.
So our investments can change the world. And I always view things as, okay, my charity's over on one side, my investment capital's on the other. I'm going to make money to make money. And when we invest into the global index funds that the financial industry teaches us all about, it's a great way to make money. But we're also leaving a lot of impact, a lot of influence on the table. And so what I got so crazy excited about opening up the way to home ownership for these deserving families, because it's like, wow, not only can we make a solid, good quality return, but we can impact our community at a positive level, and we can do really well while doing good at the same time. And so it's really sparked a new purpose and a new passion for not only myself but our entire organization. And
you got a growing organization.
It's growing. Yeah.
You got great partners. Well, I shouldn't say that. Do you think they're great partners? They're probably
about that. I don't know about that.
I don't know if that Joe guy.
I don't know about him, but everyone else is no. Yeah, it's been a true blessing. I mean, just being with amazing people, and shout out to the Nate's team. I couldn't do it without you either. You guys,
raise the roof.
Yeah, you guys have been incredible as well. But we get to do all this amazing stuff for people now.
Well, it's a worthy cause for you, and that's important. It's important to recognize that if you're in business or if you're in life, if you're in leadership, that you dig deeper. If there's not a worthy cause, there's one out there. There's one that is calling you. And it's interesting, even the word calling. You've probably heard of job, the word job. Maybe it stands for an acronym, just over broke. You've heard that before?
Sure.
And then there's a career, which is a step up from a job. It's got some perks that are more, you can make more money with a career. You have, but a career, it can change with changing wind. You can say, well, maybe I want to change my career. But a calling, that third level, I think about a calling, Jim, and a calling goes so far beyond a job or a career. It pulls you, and it's something that you find is so worthy, so attractive, and so achievable that you're irresistibly drawn to it. If you can find that calling, and you found it in this space of home ownership, investing, and creating opportunities on both three sides of the equation, really. You're creating an opportunity for the investor to participate. You're creating an opportunity for the person who perhaps could not have the home ownership. And you're also creating opportunity for those individuals who are team members to participate in authoring this better future state. And so what a great, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, wow, I'm making a difference. You're a difference maker.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that there's not a ball chasing me anymore.
It doesn't matter there's not a ball chasing you.
Like, and that's, and you ask me, hey, like, yeah, I mean, the money's great. I'm not going to apologize for it, and we're going to do really well with it. But, there's only so many rounds of golf I could do. Like,
yeah.
Like I'm not a PGA Tour guy. I'm a 15 handicap, I'm very average.
There's only so many bottles of $1,000 champagne you could.
Yeah, then it howls out, and so like, I mean, it's a true blessing, though. I mean, and I don't think I would have, like, we're pulling it off now because of the amazing team and the amazing people around us, but like a big part of it is that. Like I wouldn't have been able to pull this off as a 23, 24-year-old just because I heard a Simon Sinek speech and was like, oh, okay, I'm going to find this big calling and do it. It's part of the journey too. So like if you feel like you really want that calling and you don't quite have it yet and you're trudging through, I mean, open yourself up and keep moving forward. Cause this is guys like this is since 2006, 18-year journey I've been on. Yeah. And it took us 14 years before like this new calling formed and like happened, like
it's a lot of elbow grease. It's a lot of work. Yeah. And I think I saw a post the other day about someone who was sharing about Warren Buffett. It took him 9 years before he's made his first million, which is 9 years is not a, it's still remarkable to me.
Oh, yeah.
But the point is not many people are going to buy your book, say how to make $1 million in 9 years, because they want it fast, right? They want instant gratification. They don't care about impulse control. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a sobriety that goes along with looking at the game as a long game. Yeah, if it happens quicker, it happens quicker, but it may not. And the journey is, of course, the cliche, right? The journey is just as important as the destination, if not more, because you don't live in the destination, you live in the journey. At the same time, when you get to the destination, you want to make sure the journey mattered. And so I have a question for you, and I'll share. We'll make sure to share how to find you in the show notes of the podcast. But I have a question for you about the journey and the destination, and making sure that the journey mattered. One day, you will be at the destination. We'll just say at the end of this journey.
I thought you were going to say as old as you. One day you'll be as old as me.
Yeah. One day you're going to be as old as me.
As old as you, Nate.
I don't think you'll ever be as old as me. I mean...
Well,
if you know what I mean.
That's as old as you are now.
I'm tracking you.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's good. I can play. I drank a cup of coffee today. Although I only had 3.5 hours of sleep. But that's another story for another day when you have sick puppies. So one day you'll be at the end of the journey, at the end of this side of eternity, if you will. And you'll have an opportunity to look back and see everything that you've done, everyone you've impacted. If there's one thing that people will have said about you that would bring you joy, what would that be?
I think it would be much more on the internal stuff. Like, man, I am a better person because he was around. He helped me grow. Yeah, more so than making somebody money or anything like that. Yeah, that would be the goal. And unfortunately, when I was in my 20s, it was, even with like team members, there's people that should still, quite frankly, be on our team, that I got so busy on the transaction, on the deal, that just completely overlooked them and took them for granted, and didn't lead them the right way. It was more of like a transaction. And even though I was saying good things on how we're going to do these things for the community, they knew better. They knew I wasn't in integrity in those moments, right? And And, I think people are really good radars for like your whole heart, and what's going on there. And so I say that in humility, and that knowing that I've done it the wrong way for a long time. I mean, I messed it up for over a decade, and I still now have to like tell myself, okay, ask how Victoria's weekend went. like you do care, but you actually have to spend time to show you care, right? And little stuff like that, because like how I'm hardwired. You mentioned the will and the drive. I mean, that's how God made me, and I got to slow down sometimes.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened. You made a course correction.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have clarity of who you are. You talked about authenticity quite a bit, and I think I'm glad we framed the episode around that. You also made it clear that there are non-negotiables today, and maybe you're listening, and this is resonating because there have been some non-negotiables that have become negotiable, and we have to make a course correction because it's the person who we will become in the future who we get to choose today, the direction to become that person. That person is going to be there. The question is, are we doing whatever it takes with the decisions we make today to be that person, so that you will then be remembered just that way because you're on your way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, Jim.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. This has been fun.